to allegiance. Flag up on the stage. And just one stage on the right. Individuals. Okay, then I'll ask our board secretary to take roll. Here.
Lisa Johnston.
Here.
David.
Here.
Meredith Sauer. Stacy Feldner. Here. Terry Trask.
Here.
Kathy Willis. Here.
And then I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our September 28th meeting. Do we have that?
A second.
Who did the first?
Any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They are carried. Communications, I don't have any to address to the board tonight. Then we'll move on to public input. We have a number of requests tonight, so I'm going to limit it to 3 minutes tonight, so that everybody can get their input in. I'll just let you know that if anybody doesn't follow the rules of decorum, I'm going to have to ask you to stop speaking. Please don't make any personal attacks against anybody. That's not why we're here. The board may respond to your input at a later time, but this is a chance for you to give input. It's not a public debate, so we'll get started right away. I would ask you, if I don't have your name and address on here, to please give it, and I'll call you up. The first one I have is Forrest Lefebvre, and Forrest, your address isn't on here, so just give us your address when you come up, if he's here. Forrest? Don't see any for it. Okay, we're here. The next would be Joshua Jenkins, 940 Rosemere Circle. Is Joshua here? Anybody know Joshua? Okay. The next one is Ryan Phipps, 2810 Lambert Lane.
Hello. My name is Ryan Phipps. I'm a local business owner here and been a member of the community my whole life. Just kind of want to give a different perspective. Some people could talk stats, risk. My perspective is more of a personal one. I've had a lot of good teachers in my life and a lot of good leadership. I kind of came from a broken family. Gave me a unique perspective. So my perspective could be a little different than everybody else's. So the first thing is I'm a devout Christian. So this perspective during COVID of mine has been not very popular. So my perspective is we need to trust God, lean not on our own understanding, which again has not made me very popular. So I myself have served on school boards and church councils. So I do appreciate every one of it, but I know it's not easy. So thank you very much for that. I'm also very active in the community. I do a lot of volunteer stuff, mentoring, mostly young boys and young men. Also do a lot of donating to different causes. So that's a little bit of my background, a little bit of my perspective. So one thing that I'd like to make abundantly clear is that I don't think anybody knows exactly how to deal with everything that's going on. So my reasoning and my understanding brings me to the conclusion that free will is very important. The ability to make the decisions for your family and for your children. I know it's not a perfect solution for everybody, but it makes a lot of sense to me. Couple things here is, I believe we want to protect people's rights, standing up for what we believe they are. We shouldn't segregate somebody whether they wear a mask or not. It seems kind of hypocritical. There's consequences to the freedoms we have. Whether you like to hear it or not, mask wearing along with social distancing inhibits people from sharing, in some personal contact. In my example, so I believe it's important to share the gospel. One of the first things we do to share the gospel is to smile at somebody. It starts building a relationship with them. And obviously that's hard to do without masks. Then to effectively communicate is a problem too. You got depression all-time high, you got drug overdose all-time high. You have students that aren't even showing up for class. You have students that leave the school. If they don't want to be there, I mean, we're kind of letting them down. And I have a lot of employees, a lot of friends, a lot of parents. My last point is that being a member of the community, I've spoken to a lot of parents, a lot of students, a lot of the kids that I mentor, and they're afraid to say anything because they're afraid we're going to lock down the school. They're afraid we're going to shut down the teachers teaching. So thank you very much for the time you allowed me, and God bless you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. The next one is Tony, and I'll try it this time. Vlastelica, is that right? Or am I off?
Close.
Okay, thanks. 825 North 13th Street.
Good evening. Since I last addressed you publicly, I thought it would be helpful to highlight some trends in our community. There have been 0 COVID deaths in our schools and in our mass optional school systems, Manitowoc Lutheran High School and Roncalli. The flu is more of a threat to our children. We never force kids to wear masks during past flu seasons. I urge the board to reclaim their authority from the superintendent and follow the data. There is no irrefutable proof masks work to reduce transmission, and plenty of data suggests otherwise. In the absence of irrefutable proof, your constituents demand the masking policy immediately be deemed optional and left to the parents to decide with their children. Again, I urge you to follow the data. My next concern relates to the Manitowoc Public Schools agreement with DeRue Consulting. Here is a verbatim post from DeRue Consulting's Facebook page on August 25th, 2020. Today, we kicked off the year of facilitating racial equity work with the Manitowoc School District leadership team. We appreciate the full spirit leaders brought to the session and the courage it took to name white supremacy as something they wish to understand and address in their district. Get ready. In that short statement, DeRue Consulting used a major critical race theory buzzword, equity. This term has replaced equality. Instead of ensuring that every American has an equal opportunity to succeed, equity demands equality of outcomes. In a July 23rd, 2021 article in the Herald Times Reporter, Board President Dave Nichols is quoted, "I don't know why they think the school board is pushing something that we've never had on our agenda, that we've never has our curriculum and have no plans on having." In that same article, Superintendent Mark Holtzman is quoted, "I have heard people say we are teaching it, but that is not the case." Well, guys, maybe public statements like this by hired consultants is why people think CRT is creeping into our public education system. Per my emailed request, as a taxpayer, I would like to know the content of this training, any and all documents, how much it costs, who authorized it, how many administrators and teachers have been trained, and see a copy of the contract with DeRue, any and all documents. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing back from you on this.
And the next speaker would be Marilyn Wire, 6300 Heart Lake Road.
I just want you to know that this is not a threat to anyone. I'm just calmly reading facts and informing you and parents what I know. You deny that you are or will not be teaching CRT. You and CRT proponents claim that it's a philosophy founded by law professors that is only taught in colleges. These law professors use Marxist and analysis to claim that America is systemically racist and built on white supremacist policies. You are smart enough to know that the precepts of CRT have now burst outside of the universities, affecting K through 12 schools. You can deny teaching CRT, literally the term CRT, but still be teaching the precepts of CRT. CRT precepts support curricula and diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI programs that separate individuals by race. Curricula and training sessions that teach that racism is systemic and structural and demand that Americans work to dismantle policies, traditions, and norms are part of or a precept of CRT. Funny that DeRoot Consulting was hired to come in to do exactly that. Quote from the Curriculum Committee meeting minutes, October 15th, 2020. The DeRoot Cooperative Team worked with the leadership team, 30 MPS district leaders, in August to review data and discuss root cases of racial inequities within MPSD. This led to the identification of and practices as a focus of the terms, explanation of race and racism in our schools, and inequitable policies and practices as a focus for the team's focus throughout the year. In the DeRoot contract, its model talks about engineering, engaging teachers, leaders in professional development that takes a racial equity lens in thinking about school policies and practices. By the way, equity, much less even calling it racial equity, is another precept of CRT. DeRoot was hired by the superintendent with the knowledge and the consent of the school board president and certain members of the school board, including the curriculum committee president. In the first year of this contract, it has been fulfilled the first year of this contract was fulfilled by the wholehearted forward actions of the whole student learning committee and personnel office. So the superintendent can say he is not or will not teach CRT, but he is all in favor of teaching its precepts. He says he's done with DeRoot. Parents, 37 plus senior leaders assisting.
Is she supposed to be addressing us? This is called.
How did our teachers wear masks in school bag?
Caroline, that's good enough. Caroline, your time is up. Caroline? Caroline, your time's up. Okay, next speaker is Jennifer Gleitner, 1313 Flambeau Street, Manitowoc. Is Jennifer here? Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Jennifer Gleitner. I'm a lifelong resident of the area. I am here speaking as a private citizen, and I'm also a registered nurse. I have sat out the conversation quietly for over a year and a half, but I can no longer stay silent. Instead of using a process already in place, voting, an overly vocal minority is choosing to attempt to organize a recall for individuals who are up to re-election in little over half a year. And over what? Masks, a piece of fabric, of paper. This is what it has come to. This is what we are letting divide us. It is time that we begin putting our children first and our egos last. Your children are taking cues from you. Excuse me. They are watching your attitudes and actions. If you're going to make a big deal out of masks, then so will they. You are your child's first teacher, and a wise teacher once told me the word parent is a verb, something you must actively do. I have a child in this district, and I have asked 2 questions each week since school began this year. How is mask wearing going? And is anyone having a problem with it? The answers consistently are good and no. The kids don't care about masks. They just want to be in school with their peers. Since they were denied this for nearly a year, it seems cruel to jeopardize this opportunity for them. For many kids, school is their safe place. I implore you, Please think rationally and do not take this away from them. Consider this. If menstruating students or incontinent students' parents decide they did not want their children to wear sanitary products and wanted to allow their child's bodily fluids to be spread in the school environment, we would all have an issue with that, right? Same goes for respiratory droplets, except we don't think of them in the same regard because they aren't as tangible. This is a matter of hygiene and public safety. We are so close to ending this. And if we can be patient and make steps, we will be back to normal in the near future. Taking masks away at MPSD jeopardizes this. We have watched other schools in our own backyards close due to large numbers of infected students and staff. And I promise you, if we aren't patient, we run the risk of the same in MPSD. Please come together for the sake of our children. They need us more now than ever to be good role models. Just because we don't like a rule doesn't mean we don't follow it. This is how I was raised, and I hope you will echo the same in your homes.
Okay, our next speaker is Jeanette Basine, 1602 South 15th Street, Manitowoc.
Who was it?
Jeanette Basine? She here? She's not here? Well, nobody's coming up. Yeah, well, sorry. Jason Johnson, 314 North 8th Street, Manitowoc. Yeah, I'll leave that to somebody else. I'll go for it next.
Good evening. My name is Jason Johnson. I'm a local business owner who oversees construction crews from coast to coast, both commercial and healthcare facilities. Before that, I'm a project coordinator and superintendent for a very large company on the Eastern Seaboard. During my time as a superintendent, I was responsible for the entirety of my business, including multiple contractors and their crews, at times numbering over 100 individuals on high-profile. If anything went wrong, my job saved. Guess who got the phone call? This is why I'm speaking to you to remind you all that you have that responsibility in your representative positions. You are paid representatives of our local school district. And the superintendent presiding over this board, we have some concern. We can sit here and further waste everyone's time, and people with masks, or CRT, or whatever the ethical name of that same program focus happens to be for this week, or the local agenda regarding the upcoming wave of coercive efforts to vaccinate our own kids. Those arguments only really serve the purpose of needless local divisiveness amongst our neighbors. And that does not benefit our community. What does benefit our community is maintaining truly open dialogue between parents and educators, true transparency, and not only policy, day-to-day lesson planning directly affects the minds and futures of our, I will repeat that, our children, who are no more rewards of the state than you or I. What doesn't benefit our community is addressing the foundations instead of these variables that have divided us. Right now, as I skip the foundation of all this unrest, the reason why the majority of us are here is a seemingly purposeful lack of parental inclusiveness, curriculum, and statistically baseless policy in our educational institutions. The lack of regard for concern I have witnessed in only 2 school board meetings has been truly appalling. This is not acceptable. We are parents of our children, not we the parents will not continue to be told otherwise. We the parents will no longer be kept in the dark. We are here to stay. They're issuing their job site. And I was told that if $70,000 an hour, and however much, be enough for you to push the button and listen to the parents who are paid. Once again, thank you.
Okay. Another series,
Did she come back? Has she returned? Jeanette Desheen? Hope there's not a microphone in there. Maura Yost is next.
We don't have.
Centerville. Maura Yost, yeah, Maura, go ahead.
Good evening. I support the current MPSD board and oppose the recall. I have known Dave Nichols for something north of 30 years. I know him to be an efficient, effective leader and an active community and civil servant. He listens to all sides of the issue. I know him to be a loving and devoted granddad who is interested in providing the best possible education to all of the district's children. He is determined to provide for the safest environment for students, teachers, staff, and visitors. COVID continues to be a very real threat within MPSD. As of today, our county's positivity rate is almost 11%, actually 10.96%. The goal is to be 5% or less. In 6 months, the spring election will be here, and I encourage all to vote. The cost of a recall election now would be approximately $22,000, according to the MPSD finance director. MPSD will incur additional unknown staff salary costs for the time spent on the recall that would be taken away from their other duties. For all of these reasons, I support the MPSD board and oppose recall. Thank you.
Hey, Ryan Hanson, 1125 North 18th Street.
Thank you. I want to just, I think focus is the issue here. Clearly the community has lost focus. I saw a little bit of loss of focus last month, but I just don't think it's the wisest idea of your all time and resources to rehab the culture war flavor of the month each month at these meetings. Your focus is education. These issues are peripheral, and I think you have a job. And I encourage you to stay focused. This is what I really want to say, though. I hope it's not a minority report tonight, although it sounds a little bit like it has been. I want to express a word of appreciation and gratitude to you all who are here tonight. The job that you're doing is challenging. It's difficult. You probably don't hear thank you enough. I also want to express a word of support and gratitude to our educators, who I know many of them personally, work incredibly hard, day in, day out, to build up, educate, care for the children of this community. And I think that just needs to be acknowledged, a word of gratitude and appreciation that isn't expressed enough in these settings, clearly. So thank you, and continue to focus on education.
All right, I'll try one more time. If Jeanette's here, she can come up and speak. I think we got it. Okay, good.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Jeanette DeShane. Give me my address.
I read it off before that, so that's okay.
I'm sorry for being late. I was outside talking to the news station. I'm just here once again to repeat the same things that we've repeated at the same meetings every single month. The public wants to be heard. We want you to start making unbiased decisions, educated decisions. That's all we ask. There's no reason that all of these parents here today cannot compromise on a solution. It's putting a burden on our staff. It's putting a burden on you guys. It's putting a burden on our children. We want our kids to be able to have an education that they can be proud of. And this is hindering it. We have to be able to work together to find a compromise. I'm tired of fighting for it. I don't think it's asking too much. Finally, our retail efforts are going great. Thank you.
The next person is Darian Cotaraba, 802 South 28th Street.
There are two things that I wanted to bring to you guys tonight. The first one is I'm a part of a group that is working towards bringing kids at Hope to our whole community, the county. Two Rivers Public School District has embraced it, the kids at Hope culture, and I really think if it's something that everyone could consider, and I can send more information on that, I think it's something that our community desperately needs, especially in the times that we have been living in. The second thing that I wanted to bring up, the gentleman that just spoke before, I really agree. I think that this has been an issue. I think there has been talk of people having certain agendas on the board, and I honestly agree. Earlier this week, or last week, whenever it was, I think it was last week, board member Sellner made an article that was posted, and I truly believe that this violates the board member code of ethics. There are parts of the ethics code that I will tell you I feel have been violated. Render all decisions based on the available facts and independent judgment, and refuse to surrender that judgment to individuals or interest groups. Avoid being placed in a position of conflict of interest and refrain from using board position for personal partisan gain. Take no private action that would compromise the board or administration, and respect the confidentiality of information that's privileged under applicable law. And part of the reason that I feel this is that this whole CRT thing is something that you guys figured out months ago. And in the article, even it was stated by Stacy that CRT is not in the schools. Yet there still are things coming up about it. And like that gentleman said, it takes away from the focus of the education of the kids in this community. I am requesting that the board remove from our committee assignments or whatever is deemed best based on the ethics violation. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Dave Estes, 3310 Goss Lake Road.
I have some comments about mandates in the American way. You've got the cutest little dog at home. It's mandated to get rabies shots every so often. And that's a good thing. When I was younger and camping, we were in the snake country. It's a good idea to wear high-top boots. Protect ourselves, that's a good thing. When we go to restaurants, the restaurant owners have a mandate to put sneeze and cough shields over their food tables. That's a good thing. And we're mandated when we drive to drive on one side of the road, right side, and that's a good thing. We have mandates that infringe a little bit on us because we are not allowed to urinate or defecate in public. And that's a good thing. And our surgeons have mandates to wear masks and gloves when they're taking out our appendix. And that's a good thing. The dentist who has his hands in your mouth is wearing a mask and gloves, and that's a good thing. Food processors, masks, gloves, a good thing. We have public health inspectors who are there to guard our safety, restaurants and lodgings, and that's a good thing. And we have mandates to have clean water, good sewage treatment, and that's a good thing. Common sense, and prudence says that vaccinating, masking reduce the spread of this microbe that's plaguing America. You have mandated masks for our school children. And we should have vaccine mandates for our school children.
That's enough, all right? Let him speak. We let everybody else speak.
The health of our children to you. And I appreciate what you have done. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Matthew Phipps, 2245 Logwood Lane, Manitowoc.
Hello, everybody. The irony of this all is that the last school board meeting that I spoke at, I was about 9th grade, and I was introducing those binders right there. And my class in the school, we built those, and it's for the safety of if there's a fire drill. So I just thought that was really funny. That this is the last time I spoke, but I would like to start by saying that my experiences with the Manitowoc Public School District have been great in the past. I had great principals. I had great teachers. I had great teachers' aides. I had great lunch ladies. I had great custodial workers. They're all very detrimental. They were all very positive in my life from here. Everything I've gone through, they've been great. Even when I was a teacher at Lincoln High School, they were great. Everybody was really warm, and they said, hey, you know, you went to college, you got a degree, you got educated, we'd like you to come work here. And everybody was open arms, happy. What I'm trying to say is, everybody on the board, I respect you, I value your opinion, and I thank you for doing your work, is what I'm trying to say to you. Looking back and reflecting, I understand now that teaching children how to learn, I repeat, how to learn is not as important as what you're teaching and what they're learning. You need to protect the individual rights of our children. Group thinking is not what's best for our children or our district. I'd like to stop and say thank you for everybody that's here tonight. They all have children, that's why they're here. They love their children. They want to be a voice for their children. Just like I have children, I want the best for my children. It's not easy being here. Our children are hurting mentally and physically from the lack of accountability from this school board. I ask you to look in your hearts, because that's all we have left to speak to, Facts and theories come too easy these days. We need to live not in fear. COVID is real, but mandating stuff that to our children that doesn't have common sense behind it just doesn't make sense. Children that have IEPs need to be at school. Children that have problems staying in one spot for more than 5 minutes need to be in school and need to be with their friends. And putting masks on children that aren't going to stay still isn't going to help them learn. Or infringing fines on children for being truant, that's not what we need. We need communication. This is the 3rd school year that our children are being muzzled. I ask each of you, do you honestly think that you are helping or hurting the children with cloth masks? If there's any doubt in your hearts, think about it a little more and make a decision to help everybody have a choice. Last but not least, if your hearts are hardened to reality, I will speak to everyone here. Be smart. Don't fall into the trap of anger. Say what must be heard and act by your vote. Vote for school board members that let their parents make the choices, their health choices for their children. Thank you.
All right, Matt, Strother, 17817 Parsons Lake Road, Valdez. Is he here? Oh, okay. Did I say that? Was that last name correct?
Nailed it.
Got it. Go ahead.
Came here to speak in regards to the mask. Don't have children in this district. I do have nieces and nephews. Listening to some of the people speak, there's some good points here. I just remember something, if anybody does recall 15 days to slow spread. Does that ring a bell? Anybody? 15 days to slow spread. I'm coming from the Valdez School District, where we got rid of face diapers, and it's been great. Kids, it's optional. So we went in the next day after they made it optional. Everybody's smiling. You can see kids' faces. They're happy. My daughter, I came home that night after the school board meeting, and my daughter ran up to me and she gave me the biggest hug and she's like, "Dad, you won. You won. We don't have to wear face masks anymore." Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I go into that school for orientation. Nobody's wearing a mask, right? And it's been fine. School class, 21 kids per class. You're saying you don't have the room for math talk. Maybe that's true. 21 kids per class, stacked right next to each other. No cases of COVID. Working out great. Just
let him.
If there's a case of COVID,
Let's let him
okay,
speak.
but either way, all the kids are staying in school. They're not doing contact tracing, and it's working. So you guys go based off the CDC and the health department. You don't seem to take in any other consideration, which I emailed you all 47 studies that prove that they don't work and that they hurt the kids. So I'm just going to talk about some other things. So if the CDC told you that if you had a 0.01% chance of dying from stubbing your toe, would you wear steel toes every day? If you had a 0.01% chance of dying from getting something in your eye, would you wear safety glasses every day? If you had a 0.01% chance of dying from crapping your pants, would you wear diapers every day? It's just, a lot of this doesn't make sense. Your choice versus our choice. It's your choice to wear a face diaper. If you're going to wear a face mask outside walking your dog by yourself, that's fine. I might laugh at you, but that's your choice. I don't choose to do that. If you want to wear a face mask, driving your car by yourself, that's fine. I might laugh at you, but that's your choice. We don't choose to do that. We tried your way last year, the last 2 years. Now it's freedom's turn. We want to raise our children as leaders, lions, not sheep. We want to have 2 choices. You have 2 choices, to lead or be led. We live in a time where fairness and equality is peddled more than hard work and victory is. We live in a time where we encourage to sit down, shut up, instead of stand up and be bold. Following the masses is encouraged and more encouraged than following your heart. We choose to lead. In this pride of lions, they all may not be here. I know they're watching. It's funny. It's funny to you.
Go ahead. Oh, That's the first thing that I'm thinking. Okay. Right. Winding down. Our next speaker is Darlene Wellner, 5605 Old County Trunk Q. Darlene? Darlene Wellner. Is Darlene here? Yeah, she's over there. Okay.
Well, I'm probably the oldest person here, but I really felt enthused to speak. I'm here to support the school administration, teachers, and those members of the school board who support public education and civil discourse on school-related matters. I am deeply concerned about the lack of respect for public officials, in this case, who work without pay, for the best education of the children in the district. What are these best interests? In the COVID mask mandate issue, a very vocal minority has decided that individual rights are more important than public's health and safety. This group has protested school policy, threatened school board members, making it difficult for educators and some school board members to do their jobs. And now the call for a recall of those who do not share their views. I like to think of my fellow citizens as better people than those using violence, threatening behavior, and words seen in recent board meetings. Our children should not be the center of this mask issue. They need to see parents and the schools working together to solve problems. No one benefits from behaviors and words that tear down public education and cause fear and distrust among good people. Masks matter. Vaccines matter. Over 100 people in our county have died as a result of COVID. Well over 700,000 in our country have died from COVID. Far ahead the rest of the countries of the world. Most of these deaths could have been prevented, according to scientists and health officials. Every one of these lives were important. I have always believed in the Christian code, love thy neighbor as thyself, without exception. This is what will make America great. May we take care of the health and safety of ourselves, our children, and our neighbors. God bless all of you.
And we have one more speaker, Howard Zimmerman, 913 Hawthorne Court.
Hi, first, I want to thank you for what you're doing and for your mask mandate. This is not a political statement. This is a scientific statement, and I appreciate what you're doing. This is the same as a sign, no shoes, no shirt, no service for a restaurant. We stop for stop signs. I could give you many more examples. It just bothers me no end as a person who is volunteered in the school system to help first graders for the last 10 years, previous to these 2 years of COVID. I will not go back into the school system until the children are vaccinated and they are wearing masks. But again, this is not political, and that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think it's now closed. I thank everybody that provided input. We'll move on to our committee reports. Our first committee would be Building and Grounds, and Lisa Johnson, you are the chair.
I'll refer my report to the director's report, so it's all available in there, so I refer you to get that.
Okay, we do have to approve the minutes for that meeting. I entertain a motion in a second to approve. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, then we'll move on to finance and budget. That would be Kathy.
Yeah, the finance and budget meeting or committee met. Okay, sorry. We met on October 4th with an overview by our Director of Business Services, Angela Erdman. There are just a few main points that we covered. She talked about the budget with increased expenditures due to COVID, and we do have revenues to cover them. The second is utility savings that we'll be enjoying due to a partnership with Synergistic. The third is an expanded virtual learning with McKinley Academy. We're really excited about that. And the fourth is we're also very excited about early payment on our debt service, which was covered earlier in our budget hearing today. We also have good news with our levy reduction. We're looking at, it was estimated to be $7.81, possibly higher than that. And it looks like it will be down around the $7.30, $7.40 mark. We're not sure about that until about next week. I think it's Friday, actually. And then last, we had an update on the ESSERS and GEARS Monday. So that was it for our October 4th meeting. We met again on October 8th because of budget. And we met and approved the budget to go before today's full board at our meeting. We also approved to forward the full board the use of fund balance for 3 projects. One is an infinite campus expansion for online registration. The second is called SEEDS. It's a special education electronic data system. And the third is Skyward operating system, which will impact both our financial and HR departments. And with that, I will conclude.
Okay, any questions for Kathy? Otherwise, we have 2 sets of minutes. Does anybody object to taking them together for approval? Okay, I would entertain a motion then to accept the minutes and a second from the October 4th and October 8th meetings. Motion. Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, then we'll move on to curriculum committee. That Meredith Sauer, you are the chairperson.
So we met last Wednesday. Kathy Willis and I were able to go into Madison Elementary on what is called a curriculum walk, where we are able to sit down with the principal, talk about the goals of the institution as well as the staff and teachers, and then got to go into some classrooms. So as we met with Stacey O'Polly, she talked through her goals for the school for the year, particularly in the area of math. And so we had some significant discussion about that. And then Kathy went into a kindergarten class and I went into a 3rd grade class. And Kathy got to experience children learning all sorts of great math concepts, including algebraic concepts in kindergarten, which was pretty awesome. I had the privilege of visiting a 3rd grade class, and in that class, we were finishing up the tail ends of math, working on pretty complex subtraction, and doing a lot of mental math instead of, the old borrow and things like that. A lot of mental math going on, which was awesome to watch. And then they moved into a time of writing, and we're talking about paragraphing skills and revision and editing. So our kids are doing significant learning
It was awesome to see the attention paid in the class. I would note that, as we heard this tonight, children were not upset about wearing masks. They were very captivated by their teacher's content as well as the work that they were doing. So it was a great visit, and then we wrapped it up and talked a lot about what being a Kids at Hope school was. And Madison has adopted the philosophy of being a Kids at Hope school, meaning every child can succeed, no exception. So that's my report.
Any questions for Meredith? If not, again, I'd entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes from that meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we'll move on to the report of the superintendent, and the first item there is the payment of vouchers. I'll turn that over to Angela.
Okay, yes, we have September. We have accounts payable total of $3,365, voided checks $583, and then payroll of $1,30,850. If you watch the numbers closely, we had to addition back with the teacher payroll this month, we're back in session, so happy to take any questions if you want.
We need a motion and a second to approve the payment of vouchers.
So
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved. Thank you. And then we'll move to Joyce for the personnel report. I won't even, I'll just take them separately.
Actually,
Otherwise, if you have a question.
Yeah, I actually have a genuine question here.
Yeah.
So the thing that I wanted to maybe just, because I was thinking about it a little bit on this, and I got to sit on the personnel committee meeting, and in there we discussed the use of ESSER funds for hiring of personnel. And I really got to thinking about it a little bit in how our hiring practice goes. And I noticed on this personnel report of individuals, we have a lot of, this is a replacement position, this is a replacement position. And I was wondering if those replacement positions that we bring aboard, if those are met with board approval for each time we look to do replacement positions, or if we just blanket with one goes, we add. I guess I would kind of be seeking clarification on that too.
Well, those aren't new positions, correct?
Not necessarily, I guess it's more or less, it's germane to the adding of people and that being done in this, but not necessarily this exact report. I guess that I'm just looking for clarification on that. Do I have them? Can I just
Go ahead.
speak to that?
Go ahead. Yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification on that.
I wouldn't know the answer to it, so maybe Joyce can help with it.
I'm not sure if I understand. What's the question?
This is a replacement position. There's support staff, professional staff, and the majority of them are replacement positions. Do
Somebody can sign.
right.
But it could be.
Mhm.
Somebody previously designed and retired, and now we've got replacing, we're feeling that.
Right, and I understand that that's what, replacing a position would mean, but I was wondering is if when we seek to replace position, if the act of replacing position goes to board, or if it's just generically done.
Well, go ahead, Carrie.
Let me ask, I mean, I think, isn't that what the report is? Aren't we confirming this, aren't we approving of it
Right.
in this report?
Well,
So we can debate it. I mean, you can say, gee, I don't think that position, even if it's a replacement, is a good idea, I think. I mean, you don't have to,
I understand the nature of that, but when I was sitting in on the request to hire positions, there was the request for nurses to be added, different things of, where it was sought before we had sought candidates. So here we have candidates that have been fulfilled in that role. Do we take that action before we seek the candidate?
Are you asking if we should say if a fifth grade teacher needs to be sought as a replacement? Is that what you're asking?
I'm not saying a fifth grade teacher, I'm saying, well, fine, say custodian, any position, does it go to, is that the process? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So the only time, so on the personnel report, you will see a replacement position. And that means that that person's been budgeted for in our system,
right,
has left, and we are replacing that. So we are seeking board approval to replace that. If in fact it's a new position, it will be reflected in the personnel report as a new position. That position we will ask in a personnel committee meeting prior to the board meeting for permission. If that moves forward through the personnel committee and then to the full board, we will then seek people who will then be on the personnel report under a new position.
Okay.
Otherwise, what you're seeing is turnover and replacement.
Right. So I guess that to answer my question, the only time that board approval is sought is when adding new positions. There is no board approval sought unless the position's been filled.
Not for the position, but for the individual.
Correct.
See, here we're being presented with individuals that are
Right.
replacing another individual.
And those,
We don't have to then approve that position, just the individual. If we're going to have a new position like nurse, that we have to approve first before they can fill it. So maybe it's just the way it's worded, but all we're doing is saying, Dave retired, he left, and and Lisa's gonna take his place. That's it. But now if you wanna start a new position, say the nurse,
yeah,
we gotta approve that first. And then Joyce can go ahead and do the recruiting, whatever you do to replace.
If there's the process that we use is pretty common. It's not required. The board has the requirement to approve all hires. So what I say by that is we always bring new hires, new positions to the board for that conversation,
right,
because we don't want to bring it here and have the board say no. Does that make sense? We don't want to bring something, oh, we don't want that position. We want those conversations to happen at the committee. And if we need to make adjustments, we'll bring it back to the committee again before it goes to the full board.
right. And I respect that line of thinking. And that's why I'm curious as to why, say in this instance, where we would decide we don't want to move forward with, like say it's an aide, right? We don't feel that it's necessary to have an aide in that capacity any longer. Well, here we have offered, we have the potential, and you kind of put that person into a position of. So I'm wondering as to why the rationale in that.
So the board adopts a staffing model and the budget, which includes all of that, right? We don't ask the board to make judgments on every position in the district when it comes up or when it doesn't. So when the administration presents in the spring our staffing model, it will have positions that we added, positions that we subtracted, but we won't say, and we're going to continue a fourth grade teacher at this building and a sixth grade teacher at that building and a seventh grade teacher at this building and an aide at this building and a custodian here. That becomes part of the whole budget, right? We have 750 something full-time plus a number of part-time, plus you see coaches here. That's what the administration does. The board, by state statute, has to approve the hiring. So the process, I guess, begins probably in January, where we go through and review enrollment trends, needs of the district, wants that we have. We present that as a whole package. That becomes part of the budget, and then we move forward in the year with that budget. That's the rationale. That's
I do have something to add to that, as actually as a question. So I think in terms of ESSER nurse funds and like the nursing, then we've talked about hiring more people because we have more duties for them, totally understandable. However, when this is said and done, how long do we continue that position? And have we approved it for a certain period of time with ESSER new years as the funding for those positions? Like, would that keep coming up on this as a replacement position in our personnel reports? You know, will it just keep continuing? How are we going to address that? I guess is my big question. You know, that it was, if it's supposed to be a 2-year funding, how do we address that? I don't know if this is the time.
So, absolutely. So, and again, we'll talk about those in the future positions, but at the last curriculum committee, each position was explained, whether it was for the remainder of this year, for this year and next year, or for just the rest of this year.
Okay.
And so we will not bring forward permanent positions under ESSER dollars. That's just not our model, because we know that in 2.5 years, that money will be gone and we won't have any money. However, we may decide to make adjustments within overall staffing, and we would say, you know what, we value an additional custodian or additional aide at this model. We're going to pay for that by making a change in somewhere else, and we'll bring that to the full board.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the personnel reports? Okay, I'll take them separately. The original report that was sent to us, I would entertain a motion in a second to approve.
I make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then the addendum, that also requires a motion in a second. Somebody want to make that?
No.
Barry, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you, Joyce. We'll move on to the,
I just had a question about that. But,
oh, go ahead. Is it about
we've already
personnel?
voted on it, but I see Amber Harmon is resigning as of January, and she's also a yearbook advisor down here for $774. I don't know if that's, if is the $774 just for that until she resigns.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get it all done before that, huh?
Yeah, she's gonna have to do
So
that.
you'll notice that we have 2 yearbook advisors.
Yep.
The name right on there is John Dorr, because he will be doing that the entire year.
Mhm.
Stipend is $15.48. Hers is half.
Okay,
which is
yeah,
only
okay.
through-
That's cool.
Anything else? Okay, then I'll move on. Angela, you got a couple of items here.
Yes.
Our third Friday enrollment.
Yes, the captain board book was third Friday enrollment information. The top graph on the report shows the comparison summary. You know, we take account of, students and seats, and we have to calculate in, to bring them in and out, and that's all, weighted in different ways. So, and then also like our preschool students count as 0.5 and 0.6 for 4K students. So, this is the comparison summary of what was submitted to DPI, and they use, and that gets translated into our revenue. So, so you'll see like a total of 4978, but really in our account on the revenue limit worksheet, we have 49. So that's just some behind the scenes things that come into play. The summary, as I mentioned earlier, we have less overall for opening up this plastic, slightly for our students in to make the results. Just being back in the instructional environment, expanded virtual education opportunities help us well with that. And then we have information. If there's some information that you'd like to see that, so I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Colin.
Yeah, so it looks like there's a decline in our numbers as far as enrollment. Yes, the number that would translate to dollars. What is the dollars? How much money was lost due to the enrollment factor?
Well, I don't have that exact number right here right now. I can get that for you. But what does happen as we see like a natural trend of enrollment, which is the trend that's going to continue over the next few years, our staffing model that human resources uses, that choice works with Mark, that kind of works along with that. So, they evaluate always the number of students in all the grades, especially at the elementary level, and then, number of sections at the middle school and high school that are offered. So it's, there's so many different things that go into the calculation of our revenues and everything, so that the enrollment is a huge one, but we have just ways to work around it with our staffing. So
Colin, I give you some generalizations which aren't always able to be used, but we spend about $10,000 per pupil. So when you think about that model, the reason I say it's not perfect is because it's a 3-year average. So it's bridged over 3 years. So for example, if we get 100 students new to the district this year, on our 3-year average, we only get to count 33 of them. That makes sense. And then the next year we get to count 66, and the next year is 99 or 100. So that's part of the model. The other piece is part of the model is where are the students coming from? So for example, Angela mentioned we have less open enrollment students out. That's actually a significant reduction in expenses for the district because we count students who are open enrollment out and then we pay money to go out. If that makes sense. We pay out, we first count them and then we pay money. If we get them back, we count them and don't pay money out to the tune of about $8,700 per pupil, something like that, right? So if you have, so the long story is it depends, right? It's not, it depends. But the reality is we are a slightly declining school district. And the best way I can explain that is we have approximately 375 graduates and probably 320 or 310 5K kids. So, that model is going to see us slightly decline. What we've seen, however, is we do grow a little bit within 5K, 4K to 5K, 6th grade or 5th grade to 6th grade, 9th grade to 10th grade. We have models, we try to predict that, but we use that then to do our staffing. So our staffing reflects the current students that were enrolled. And if we have to increase or decrease, we saw that based on 194 kids at McKinley Academy, right? We had to increase the number of FTEs there because we're just over. And we've reduced in other buildings prior to this year to start the year based on our estimates of students. The other pieces, really impossible to change. So the example would be in this building, if there's 500 students, the heat, the light, the maintenance, etc., costs the same if there's 550 or if there's 450, right? Those are exactly the same. So the only places that we have variables a lot of times is in our staff. Hence, as Angela put in a piece, about 80% of our budget.
So then with that, so if we're having a continual downturn in our enrollment, and we're projecting then, because we have the numbers that, the amount of money we receive from the state based on our enrollment, we potentially will have even less money come next year.
We will have less money next year.
And then on top of that, we also have even less money as a result of the 125 on top of what Governor Evers is providing. So there will be an even bigger situation probably come next year.
And no new revenue from our legislatures.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to do that.
And I would say, Manitowoc Public School District is very fortunate we passed a referendum, right? Absent that referendum, we have a big gap. So what we're seeing here is unprecedented, right? We're going to present in next board meeting with a levy that's the lowest it's been in 15, 18 years. But the school district moving forward to the next school year won't have enough resources. Conversation in the future.
Anything else on the third Friday enrollment? Otherwise, we'll move to the, if you're still on, food service report, Angela.
Okay, and I Schultz with me, she is our food service director, and she really is the mastermind behind it all. I can't take credit
assist in any way I can. So I brought her along to speak to you.
Yes, thank you. The information I'm going to go over is included in your board book, so you do have that information at the time. So as you've been brought aware many times already, meals are going to continue to be served free to all students throughout the serving these free meals, the district will be getting the higher reimbursement rate from the so it definitely will not be creating a financial hardship for the district. And in fact, the higher reimbursement rate has really helped the food service department and that program be able to reinvest in the program. That's one of the requirements. Any revenue that is generated from the food service department has to be reinvested into that program. Over the last couple of years, we've done quite a few different upgrades and replacements to our equipment. We replaced both food transport trucks, a new steamer at Lincoln High School. We put new reach-in coolers at schools across the district. We just replaced both combi oven steamers at the MRC, or replacing the airspace for Washington. And we were able to upgrade from a single convection oven to a double stack convection oven. And then some additions that we made is we added reach-in freezers at all elementary schools. Hot holding cabinets at every single elementary school in the district, which definitely helps temperature quality. And we added this year 3 mobile grab and go breakfast stations. We are currently offering breakfast between homeroom and the winter period on each floor. Combined into 3 breakfasts. We also just took part in a transition away from Wordware to Infinite Campus for service software. This has been a conversation we've been having for years with the additional funding coming into the district food service fund. Now is the best time to do it. The initial investment was about $20,000, but it is well worth it. Good Infinite Campus district reporting that is pulled for free and reduced eligibility is instantaneous and in real time. It's no longer a process where we have to wait for a person to manually get the information from one system and do a data load into the system that we had to previously do. And then the fresh fruit and vegetable program. This is a grant that I applied for annually. The only schools that I can apply for the grant for are elementary schools that have over 50% of free and reduced eligibility. Historically, the last few years, Jefferson has been awarded that grant. Franklin was also recently awarded, but for the 21-22 school year, we had 4 elementary schools all receive this grant funding. All total, it came to almost $71,000. And like 99% of that funding is used to purchase the fresh fruit and vegetable snacks that are offered to those students during their school day.
Are all the schools 50% below free and reduced?
They are not.
Okay.
So, yet I applied for a grant for every elementary school that's above 50%.
Okay.
So that grant for Franklin, Jefferson,
Madison and Monroe?
Yes. Our biggest challenges for the 21-22 school year in food service are staffing. I know it's been all over the news in recent weeks regarding food shortage in schools. How are schools going to be able to serve meals? One thing that I really do want to stress is that we do not have a food shortage. We have plenty of food. We have access to plenty of food. We are still offering 2 entree choices at all of our elementary schools every day. There's multiple choices at the middle schools and the high school. The one issue that we are experiencing is manufacturers, they have production issues. So they had to cut down the number of items that they carry and plant. Sometimes our trucks aren't on time, you know, their schedule is off because they have some all stems from staffing across. But we definitely have some menu changes already this year at the elementary schools. They're again loving our transition to Infinite Campus. With food service using Infinite Campus, we were able to utilize the Infinite Campus messenger system to notify parents ahead of time of change, what it was going to be, and what that substitution was going to be. So it definitely helps keep those lines of communication open with families that, again, we just didn't have those same capabilities of their previous software program. And then staffing, as I mentioned, staffing is a challenge in all areas, and service is not about those challenges. We also have somewhat of a, I would say, unique situation. We do have food service associates that, you know, the reality of the situation is there are many businesses that are offering sign-on bonuses. There are many companies that increase their starting wage. One thing that I do need to be cognizant of, and we're very aware of, is that although we have the initial fund this year, we don't know what the reimbursements for meals are going to be next year. So it would be irresponsible to raise our starting wages for the food service staff above a level that would cause the food service program not to be profitable in future years. So it definitely does add to the staffing issue. However, in comparison to what our staffing level was pre-COVID, we have the same number of associates that we did pre-COVID. So it's not like we're running with less people, but we're serving more meals. And that's the part that is becoming a little bit challenging. We are serving more meals with the same number of people. Our lunch participation, September 21 compared to September of 2019. Our lunch participation increased by 19%, and that's September off of September. Our breakfast participation increased 28%. It's a lot of additional meals that we are serving each day with the same number of people that we have. And then there's the COVID impact. If we have somebody who tests positive, then the rest of our staff in the kitchen is quarantined, so we're filling those gaps. We have not left the school without coverage ever. I will say that this year, I have definitely worked in school kitchens, cooking and serving more days than I have spent a full day in my office. But I also love it. You know, every part of my administrative team, we've been in school just about every day in some way, shape, or form, being at the dealings with the students. But you know, just like Mark Holzman traded positions with a para, was that last week? It's one of those things where I think it helps keep you humble and it keeps the pulse on what's going on in your schools and the school kitchen, and keeps all your expectations realistic because you know day-to-day with your staff as well. And then we had this year was the first time that the triennial assessment was required to be completed on the district's wellness policy. So what the triennial assessment does is it takes a look at what MPSC's wellness policy is, how does it compare with the wellness policy goals, and it goes a step further to being not just what is our wellness policy, but how well is it being followed. Because as with any policy, the point and the purpose of it's not just, ooh, we have a policy and it's there to be a living, breathing thing. It's something that's lived. So this triennial assessment took a look at our policy And the input was provided not just by myself, but school principals, school nurses, health teachers, ed teachers. So everyone had input on evaluating our wellness policy and how well it was being followed. The reading scale for the overall policy, it's a 0 to 3 rating, and we came in at 2.23, which is pretty good. I mean, I would think it's actually very good. Because level 2 means that you mostly met, or multiple activities were completed. And this is what we will use as our basis when the wellness policy is reevaluated next time.
And I think, with COVID in the mix, just there is an established wellness committee, but it hasn't nothing about. So it's one of those things, not only assessments and just we'll get that committee back on the line. Review these results. Thank you.
Okay, Colin.
Two things. The strength score was rated at 59 out of 100. I'm not sure what a strength score I tried to read a little bit into what that was, but is it that our policy was kind of, is it just not, is our policy not being followed? What does that mean?
When people filled out the questionnaire, a strength score would have been figured into the computation. If they gave it like 2, it was 2, 1, or 0. So like, it's like I scored a section, and I put all the scores together, and then I get 2. So it was kind of just like that.
Gotcha.
Almost like a weighting almost to see like how it goes. Like I think more that's really.
Okay. And then the other one was that I noted you said you're serving more, and then like just in the last thing we just talked about, enrollment is down. So I'm seeing a difference. What am I seeing the difference in, and what can be translated there?
Right. So we have declining enrollment, but we are serving more meals. There are a couple things that are really making up the difference. One, the biggest one is that meals are free to all students. So that is definitely generating information. And then with breakfast, pre-COVID, breakfast at both of the middle schools was offered in the cafeteria before school. Since COVID and with meals being free for all students, we are doing breakfast in the classroom at all 6 elementary schools, and we are also delivering breakfast in the classroom at both middle
Okay.
schools.
The patrons, I guess.
Yes.
Increased. Okay.
Any other questions on the food service report? Okay, Angela, don't go away. You gotta come back when we're in the business. Then we'll move on to Superintendent Holtzman, the director's report, and the district activity.
Sure, I'll just pause here and see if anybody has any questions or things they'd like to be clarified under the superintendent director's report.
Colin.
Yep. Sorry, guys. I know you're hearing a lot from me today, but so one of the things that I had seen on there was under the superintendent's report, the Joanne Medicine Pupil Services for the disproportionality work. I was wondering as to the disproportionality work. I guess if she could maybe speak on it or touch on what that is, and yeah.
Did you get that, John?
Yeah, just in general.
And part of it is I have the it says that there was an action plan to address our racial disproportionality designations and building level action plans. I remember seeing that was coming, but I didn't remember seeing those action plans in actually the entire DB or anything of that nature. I was hoping that maybe I could hear a little bit more.
I have distributed a copy of the action plan to remedy disproportionality. The group probably remembers that we have 2 areas of disproportionality, and our original plan was written because we have too many students who are Black receiving
services for emotional behavioral disabilities. So it's this process to write, to do an analysis and then also to write a plan to try to remedy that disproportionality. And our state is consistently looking at different areas that their data would show we are disproportionate. And then we more recently had a second delineation of disproportionality, which is that we have too many students who are Black with IEPs in any area being removed for disciplinary reasons. So we then have worked with the people to write a plan to determine how we might be more proportionate rather than disproportionate in those numbers. And so I have our original plan that I again have distributed that and sort of speak to it as more like this moment.
No, I don't remember seeing, that's why I'm asking, I haven't seen it. I'd appreciate that.
Relatively, when we first joined our board, you and I had some communication back and forth.
That's the
And
plan you're
see,
alluding
when
to?
that's when you sometimes ask me about item 13.
Mhm.
That is the entire.
So that's the document you're talking
Yes,
about?
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
so are we, now, I had some concerns in that item 13, is that, are we just resubmitting that to use as our moving forward?
Yeah, so we have an obligation to submit an updated plan that would include both of those areas of disproportionality. And we have submitted that plan and just learned that DPI has that plan.
So I guess going back to the things that I had concern about, you know, one of them was transgender white privilege and racial equity, things like that. You know, I guess, why didn't we get to look at that plan before it got submitted, knowing that I had concerns about it?
I could take that. So I think the conversation goes through, we made some adjustments, probably the language that you're looking for in that, but the board, the district has to send that to the state, and the state approves it. We're mandated by the state to create a plan and forward that to the state for their approval. So what Joanne Metzen does, and what we empower her to do and her team, is create, follow the guidelines, forward that to the state for their approval. So the state approves that, and then we can move back. That's the process that we use.
So we will have a chance to revisit what was submitted to DPI.
Sure.
At a later date. All right, thank you.
I have a question regarding that. Actually, we include parts in the plan for taking into consideration children's home life or community mentorship, like having individuals come in and work on an individual basis. I guess I'm very curious about the plan, and so you don't have to necessarily answer those questions now, but I would like to see it specifically also.
Yeah, sure. To share information, so what can I work on it together? And future product.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You know, I think the school counseling team information too has a bearing on our goal to do something about inappropriate behavior. So I'm glad to see that, you know, you guys are onto that stuff. I'd like to talk to you a little about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to connect with you, Carrie, on that topic. We're really lucky to have a great group of counselors. And
I was
the
pretty
little
impressed
portion
with
in
that.
there is talking about, you know, a piece of data that we have to work towards and some goals related to that data, and then also there's been some focus on the social and emotional well-being of our
Yeah, sure.
students.
And I'm sure that intersects with the disproportionality stuff too. So.
Yeah, I think there's so much overlap,
Yeah.
because it's all about us serving the people that are student population well. And so certainly supporting people through social emotional learning and setting them up with success for behavior. It blends with so many things. That's also going to help us lead to some academic goals.
Yeah.
So, and I would really, really appreciate being involved in some of those discussions too, if that's possible.
Thank you.
Go ahead. You're still on.
Oh, I will be brief. A district activity update.
Best thing you said all night.
Write that down. I will be brief. Say it 3 times. It's long. This is week 7. We've got some parent-teacher conference coming up at our secondary schools. The reason why we're here at Wilson and not at Lincoln is because they are prepping for the one-act play, and they have other things set up. So thank Wilson for making this happen. There's a lot of people who come here today to make some adjustments to how their board meetings to happen. I would also tell you that we had a fantastic homecoming week. I saw elementary school kids marching on Saturday. We recognized a former principal and their family who donated some resources so we could light the tower. We had a great crowd at homecoming events. And I know that the high school sold 800 tickets for their homecoming dance. So there's lots of great things that are going on, and we'll have lots of things coming up with the one-act play and the idea that many of our teams are now moving forward into the end of the season, and we're excited about what's to come. We do have 3 female girls, right? 3 girls. We do have a doubles team and a singles team who will be competing in state, I believe, this weekend or Thursday. Thank you. So that's something that doesn't happen all the time, and we're very proud of it. So that's great.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for the superintendent? Okay, then we're going to move on to unfinished business. First item is the second read of policy 5310, health services. That requires a motion and a second. Do I have a motion and a second? And we'll get to discussion. I know, Colin, you have something to add.
Yep.
Any second? Okay, and I'll let you go first, Colin, because you had.
Yeah,
I know
so,
you had questions.
Wait.
I'm sorry. I first one.
Lisa,
Okay.
and then Meredith,
Thank
seconded.
you.
Okay, go ahead.
So the thing that I was discussing, I put up the policy 5310. I talked to some people that were in other school districts just to kind of find if they had something similar. You know, if it is the federal government that is stating that we need to have the policy be in our policy book, even though we don't have it, I was wondering exactly as to what other places do that. And I had spoken to an individual from the Mequon School District, and that's where that the one that I sent you guys was from. And upon reading it, I saw that it doesn't have some of the, you know, areas of contention that, you know, many people were like, whoa, we don't have invasive procedures and things like that. And I was thinking, well, if we have the requirement to have these types of things in there under the 20 U.S. Code 1232H, protection of people's rights, if we can have it so that it covers those things, yet is not in the realm of procedures that we don't have. We don't do CAT scans, but you know, it's an invasive procedure. Why would we have CAT scans in our policies if we don't do those types of things? That's kind of the thinking I have. Have things more germane to, you know, we don't want to have gray area in our policy. That's kind of where lawyers work and find wiggle room. Let's have something that's more cut and dry. This is what we do. So that's why I thought that the policy that they have in Mequon kind of fit what we were looking to have maybe changed a little bit more amicable to our situation. And I just felt much cozier with it. So I'll shut up, be quiet for a second, and maybe let somebody else speak.
Anybody else want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, the MEC one seems really a minimalist statement, but so I'm wondering if it covers all of what should be covered under that. But you know, this is an issue I want I don't want to belabor much.
Okay, otherwise, Colin, you'd have to make an amendment in order for that to be changed, for the policy that we're looking at to be changed, you'd have to make an
Can
amendment.
I request that we maybe table this to,
You could make a motion to do that, yes.
I would like to make a motion that maybe we table the policy 5310.
Just for the Robert's Rules of Order, better to postpone it than to table it.
I would be fine.
Tabling it keeps it on the floor for this meeting and doesn't necessarily come back if we postpone it to,
Yeah,
like to the next meeting?
yes, so that we can get the, if this is if this policy would cover and make, the lawyers happy.
It's got to go to a committee. I don't know.
Well, just hang on, we got a motion, we need a second.
I second.
Okay, now we can have discussion on the motion to postpone.
Till the next meeting. I mean, don't you think a committee, and I have no idea what committee would look at this, but a committee has to look at this. I mean, this needs text and, editing and.
Well, I agree, Carrie, it just, we don't have to pass it tonight, we have a.
No,
policy, right?
I don't
This is
think we
just
should pass
modifying
it
the one.
tonight. I
We
mean,
already have a
I'm happy to
policy,
postpone it,
this is
but-
just modifying the one we have, so,
Yeah, sure.
go ahead.
Carrie, we did bring it to a committee and then we sent Joanne on a scavenger hunt to do some research and talk to our lawyer.
Mhm.
I think I would be more interested, not so much to bring it back to a committee that doesn't have that background of law, but instead perhaps bringing this to our lawyer specifically and
Yeah, it's a
saying,
good idea.
is this acceptable, is this not? And in my opinion, if he says, if it's not, we shouldn't go against what our advice from the lawyer is. But I would be interested in taking this to him and saying, does that suffice, or would we be in a heap of trouble not following word for word?
Yeah, I think that's a real good
Sure,
suggestion.
just send it to the attorney and see what he says.
Absolutely.
There is an additional cost to that, I realize, and we
Well,
did have a legal
so-
opinion
so,
that indicated that the policy that's being presented is
That's a good.
appropriate. I'm just,
Yeah, they have to clock them, yeah.
Go ahead, Cal.
They get
I mean,
bucks
as
in
far
there.
as it, I think there were a lot of people here that were paused when they heard some of that language that's in that
Oh,
policy.
sure.
And it kind of was like, holy Moses, this is,
Private parts.
yeah, so
I mean, honestly.
now that policy was written by Neola. Neola, I can't really say that.
Yeah.
It's Neola.
Okay, it was written by Neola. This policy was written by somebody else. If we can remove the areas that were of concern to other people and have a different policy that suffices our needs, abides by what the feds are requiring of us to do, I see that as being a good route to take. I think that I would, even if it does incur an expense to be ran by a lawyer, I would be okay with that route for sure.
Colin, I have a question for you. Do
Kathy,
you
go ahead.
know more of who wrote it and when it was written? Do we have that information? Was it written?
I
by
could
a
get
lawyer?
that information
I
probably.
think that would be some of the key information that we should have.
But I would probably just have to, the
Okay, ask.
contacts
Yeah.
Mequon School District just the same. It was probably, it says the same legal statutes right on the bottom that it is adherent to 20 USC 1232, just like ours was. So I'm not sure who wrote it. I do know that is what they have.
Do you know how old it is?
We, have to,
We
we'd
can
have to
check.
look that up and then we have a date on it.
Yeah.
The board policies typically are under board docs, which are very similar for districts all around. Go ahead. Mary.
I continue to read it over and over again, and all this is saying is that we would announce if we are doing those screenings, because we have to delineate a time frame. So if we're not doing those screenings, then what's the harm in making a post that essentially says we're not doing these screenings? That's what it comes down to, is the notification. It doesn't say we're doing any of those screenings. So I appreciate the cost factor. I hadn't considered that, Dave. Yeah.
But I also understand Colin's point of view where there's some language, even when we put them in the policies, that create like a sense of alarm within, say, parents or people reading them. So I think we want to be sensitive to that. So there is some verbiage in there that's kind of alarming. And, you know, sometimes you hone in on certain words or verbiage and then you don't pay attention to the rest. I mean, I think that's part of nature. So there may be some of those things that we may want to just look at a little further. Like, can it be softened or worded differently so it doesn't create that alarm? I guess that's how I see what Colin is saying. Am
Absolutely.
I correct in saying that? Yeah.
Joanne wants to talk.
I just want to point out
Oh,
that,
sure.
when you go to the next month, Beatonville School District, board page, their policies are posted much like ours are. And policy 5310 from that webpage was updated in 2015. What Neola has offered us for the most current update was updated in 2019.
And, you know, Colin, I don't know if you looked at all their policies, but there are some that I really like that I would rather pick out than this one. Well, for example, their policy on public input is much better.
I didn't look at any of the.
But I'm just, that's, you know,
Yeah.
being light about it. I don't have a problem with postponing as long as we have a plan that, you know, that we're gonna do something. If we're just putting it off for 2 weeks, that's not good.
And if you even look to the lawyers, when they had mentioned, the attorney memo, the attorney memo states that, in the bottom, it's number 1 on the page 103. The excerpt here is from the template policy. Specific school districts policy language may differ based on the modifications to the template policy by individual school boards, giving full right to the school board to make changes as they see fit, just as long as they are in compliance with what is stated to do.
Sure.
So I want to make sure you're understanding what's happening. When Neola gives us a policy, there's often boxes that we get to check. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this. That's what they're talking about, not you get to edit policy as you deem appropriate. So they're talking about when they say there is a template. Yep, there's a template, and our policy language may differ based on the template, meaning we chose 1 instead of 2, chose 2 instead of 3.
Right.
It's not talking about you get to edit as you deem appropriate. So
Sure, and
how you
that's not
handle that's fine,
automatically
but we're
what
saying that like that's what they're specifically talking about. in terms of our policy.
So can we see the other templates that we could have chosen?
They may be, yes. I mean, typically we do it. I don't know if there was anything that we could choose or not choose. In that one. There wasn't. So there wasn't
It
anything.
wasn't that there were several different versions of policy 5310. There's something that you can select in the templates.
I don't have a great example, but some examples might be, some policies will say the board or the superintendent. And then we'll act as, that might be an example. In our policy, we choose to check if it's the board's or the superintendent's role. In this case, what I'm hearing from Joanne, and again, she's a little bit more a preference than I am on this, that there wasn't any places to check on this policy. Generally, if there are, when we bring them, we'll share like the whole document of update unless it's brand new, and then that's what the policy is.
Okay, my other question is, we don't have to use Neola, is that correct?
Correct.
And we paid for Neola, is that correct?
Yes.
So if we wanted to, as a board, write our own policies and not use Neola, we could do that, correct?
We would provide our legal
I'm just
advice.
asking the question, is that correct or not?
Well, we wouldn't be able to make legal documents without some legal, or we shouldn't without legal advice. Sure, we could become a rogue outfit,
Okay, that's all I want to know.
but I'm not going to support that. And I wouldn't expect that we're going to get a lot of support for becoming rogue, especially when it comes to legal policy. That's a dangerous path to go down.
But there are other outfits besides Neola.
Oh, there are other, right. I gave this example months ago. We used to have a board attorney and he would be at every meeting. And so he would be able to advise us when we had these types of questions. We have that at the county board level. I know the city council has that. We don't. We no longer have a board attorney. But we need legal advice because we're creating legal documents. And if we want to create our own, we could, but boy, we'd run the risk of, our liability risk would go up into the sky.
Boy, I remember in my sophomore year in social problems, you know, the definition of a problem, and it has to be problematic. I mean, there has to be conflict and dysfunctionality or something. I guess I don't see this as I mean, when Colin sent it to me, I thought, oh my God, you know, what is this terminology? But people aren't lining up to speak against this at our meeting. So I'm not sure it's a problem, is it?
Well, there is a I mean, I'll wait till you, can I speak?
No, sure.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. There is one item on there that does really draw concern for me, and I know that this policy is a notification policy. But I mean, I view, especially when looking at item number 3 on this policy, when it's stating that it says is, and then it moves into not necessary to protect the immediate health and safety of a specific student, comma, or other students. Now, when we're talking about invasive procedures and screenings and what have you, I can't think of a single other time that it would be or other students, except for the things that we're talking about in mass public right now. And I think everybody knows where I'm going with that one. And that's why I would be very concerned if we were to have some language in that. I mean, if you have, because I don't think that
You think this empowers us to do this?
I would be worried about those things, because why in the world, if it's or other students, if it's stating that you can say is, I would be concerned there. And that's why, one of the reasons that I am concerned there. So whether my concerns are unfounded, I guarantee that those concerns are not in the singular. And if I see that there is a policy that doesn't have those concerns, I would be much more apt to go with that. And that's why I would be really hoping that we could explore that other policy.
I'm gonna go right to we got the motion in a second. I'm gonna ask for a vote to postpone to our next meeting, right?
And what would the action be?
Well,
Are we just putting it off, or are we actually?
I don't know. I'm not in control of that, so I'm not.
I mean, I'll add to it that we postpone moving forward with the second read of 5310 and researching with our lawyer as to whether the policy that I provided you guys, written by the Mequon School District, would suffice our legal requirements.
Well, and have them look at both policies. The one that we have, I mean, that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the merit is suggesting, even though.
So, any other questions on that?
I guess I would like to know what that cost. Is there an estimate of that cost? I mean, how much are we taking away from other things that can happen? Because we've already had the guidance by the lawyer. So do we have like an estimate at all? Are we talking $1,000? Are we talking, you know?
So what would happen is that we would communicate that and they would bill us by the hour. I don't, I'm not sure if this is an hour or 2 hours, I'm not sure. So I can only guesstimate. I would guess it's, my guess would be it's in the $500 to $750 range. That would be my guess. Based on what.
All right, I'm gonna ask for a vote. All in favor of postponing the second read of the policy approval to our, well, I'll say our next meeting. Say aye.
Why would you say that?
Well, let's start our next meeting. That's
aye.
2 weeks.
I mean, we can make a decision then to move it somewhere else too.
Yeah.
But at least let's put it on the agenda for our next meeting, just like our next item is one that we brought from our last meeting. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well, that's what we got. And then we'll move on to the next item, which is moved forward from our last meeting. There was a motion to eliminate the mask requirement for students with IEPs. And Stacy, you made the motion, so I'll just let you speak first on it if you want to. You made the original motion.
I just, with the concerns that have been brought up, I know that there is a document that you can sign. I think that adds an extra element for the parents to have to make an appointment and have to pay for that appointment to get that document signed. And we already know that there are issues with that population. So I just think it would be a good move for our disabled students to have that option to wear a mask or not.
And then I'm gonna ask Joanne, because I had spoken with her, if you would provide input on our IEP students and whether or not that's an appropriate action to take for all of our students.
First of all, I'm always happy when anyone is thinking about our students with disabilities. So I appreciate that we're talking about them today. So thank you for that. I think from my perspective, knowing that there are over 800 students who have IEPs in our school district for many different reasons, thinking about them as an entire group and thinking that something like, having none of them, for example, need to wear a mask doesn't always fit for all of their various disability categories. I believe there are 11 different doors to the House of Special Education. So someone might have visual impairment, hearing impairment, learning disability, etc. And so not in each of those circumstances would someone have a health situation or big situation that would require or have given some reason that a mask would not be needed. And so that's one thing that comes to mind. The second thing that comes to mind just is that really take confidentiality, and you all do very, very seriously. And I think if we would take a group of students, any group of students, and say that those particular group of students are not required to wear masks, then you might be unintentionally and inappropriately identifying them in a way in our communication, which also not comfortable with. As Stacy mentioned, we do advertise frequently the form that people can utilize to have a mask exemption. Comes out when we have our COVID information update that goes out to our families and to our staff members. There's a link there for that. Yes.
It's not a question, actually, it's a statement. One of my concerns would be, I know you guys talked about this at the last meeting, which unfortunately I had missed, but when I see IEPs, I also know that many of those students, and I'm not privy to the numbers, but come along with behavior plans also. So I would be very concerned about releasing maps from kids with IEPs that also have behavior plans, because those are the kids who have issues with behavior within our schools. So to me, that doesn't become, when it becomes about safety and they're having behavior issues, I just see that as being problematic. Does that make sense? When we have those students with IEPs and behavior plans. If you're saying IEPs, we're releasing all those kids from their masks, and those are the kids who have a lot of those kids have behavior plans, I would become alarmed by that.
I think, Kathy, the student population that you might be referring to, they might be students who would require close care. So someone who may be displaying a certain behavior, or some of our students who might need something like, for example, maybe they need toileting assistance or some kind of close hand-over care. And so our educators are going to be even nearer to those students. It could be because of behavior. I think is part of what might be.
It's kind of all of them.
Yeah. That could require our staff members to provide care nearer to them than they might other students.
Well, it's just a huge loophole. I think that
It is.
really questions our whole policy. And I would be absolutely voting no on this one. Unless, for individual cases that seek an exemption for valid reasons. Of course you have to allow for that, but just a blank group of 800 people. I mean, the people that are complaining about equity should complain about this. it's not, I mean, who insist upon equality or sameness should find this objectionable in some ways, other than for political reasons, of course.
And I think the amendment, the original, motion was probably brought forth, to open the door and just create more, you open this and then you open this. It was just a gateway is how I'm looking at it. So I'm voting.
Colin?
Well, I guess I take offense to the idea of, helping out a kid that can't read lips anymore or something like that as a gateway. I look at it as trying to go with the student's needs.
They have an option to get the exemption.
I understand. And
Let Colin first. Go ahead.
thank you. So, the point in having this, parents have a lot of medical expenses in the first place. We're adding another. As far as these, full well that the kid needs it. So we're still, even though we know that the kid is struggling in getting his education, communicating with the people, we're still pushing this mask mandate for them, even though it's getting in the way of their learning. And I'm wondering why. It isn't a gateway. I mean, granted, I don't like the mask mandate. I think that the mask mandate, it should be in the realm of the parents, not in our hands. And I made no quietness about that because, that's between the doctor and the parent. But what I do think is that if we know full well that this is stifling the communication and learning of certain individuals, then we should be accommodating that. And I do think that we have legal, we have to.
Colin, I do understand what you're saying. However, when we're talking about a group of students who can't say, for example, lip read, because our masks take away from that, that's a very, very small group of people. And we have started looking into masks that will allow them to read lips around them, the clear ones and so forth. It's an entirely different situation when we're talking about 800 students with IEPs. Excuse me. I think that's a big distinction, and I think I would have an issue with it too, just because we're talking about 800 students. We're not talking about that. Maybe it's 10 or 20. I don't know how many kids we have who are hard and deaf of hearing, and having grown up that way myself, by the way, I totally get that. When it comes to reading lips and having issues with hearing, I still wear tubes most of the time. So I get that, but that's not what this is about. This whole mask requirement for students with IEPs relates to 800 students, not for that group of students who are having a hard time reading lips. And I think that's the biggest distinction for me and why I would vote down. Do we need to make accommodations for them? Absolutely. But I can't see releasing 800 kids just because they have IEPs from wearing masks.
Meredith, go ahead.
I understand what you're saying about it being cost prohibitive, but all of these children are under care of a physician who is very knowledgeable about their situation already. So honestly, it's a phone call to that physician to secure the documentation. It's a dropping of a form and having the signature. It doesn't mean an additional appointment because they are already very fluent with the case. So I don't buy that personally.
I don't either.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is that if we remove masks from a certain population, particularly those who are in very close quarters on a constant basis with our teachers and staff, we are creating a work environment that is unsafe for our staff and our teachers, and I don't like that either.
I send my kids to school without a mask. They're safe every day. And so is the population of many of the surrounding communities and the students at those communities.
And I can argue with you about that, Colin.
I would like to finish what I was saying. I try to respect your speaking.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Colin. Go ahead.
I don't think that it is, we have a definite disagreement into what is safe and not safe for children. I look at I got sent the pictures from a parent over the past week, and it was a picture of the mask that she had taken from her kids of what they came home with on their mask, and it was discolored. It had the lunch all over it, and you're breathing, and they were breathing that in. I think back to when my kids were, and you can change it out every day, and they're still doing that. I think back to when my kids had to wear masks, and that was going on then too. You know, you're talking about 5-year-olds. They don't maintain, you know, sanitary environments like surgeons and nurses do. Their mindset of germs isn't what we as adults adhere to. And we have this blanket outlook and blanket look that we need to have children keeping the Cheetos off their face and putting it in a mask, and this is going in their lungs. So the long term, yeah, there's the reason that other school districts have dropped these mask mandates is because of those reasons. They have gone against the CDC and the guidelines that we are upholding and sticking to. You go to Walmart, people don't have masks on. You go to any of the restaurants, people don't have masks on. It is just in Manitowoc Public School District that they have masks. In fact, some of the people that are required to wear masks are not wearing them outside of Manitowoc Public School District. So what are we doing? You're still going to get sick, but yet, and that's another thing. We still have COVID numbers that are occurring even with the mask mandate. So we are chasing our tail, sacrificing things, and causing damage to our children. We have an impact that is going to occur from a mental health state. One of the people that is here is a psychologist. They deal with mental health on a regular basis, and they're not for masks from what I've seen. So why are we going against what the scientists are saying? Because there are scientists that are out there. There's doctors that are out there. If you want, I can provide you with some doctors that have come out and said that. And I really am I'm frustrated because we're adhering to things that have gone up and down over time and trusting that that is what we need to do, yet we're still having COVID cases in our schools. Other schools are not having, they're having COVID cases, but they're not having the mask mandates. And it's just, I feel like we're chasing our tail. And and if you can help out a couple kids who may have this problem, I think it's going to be at least beneficial. These are children that we have at least identified that their learning is going to be more impacted by having a mask on than other children.
I just don't want to relitigate this every meeting over and over again.
And that was the purpose
I
of
mean,
that.
honestly, that was a good comment, you know, but the fact of the matter is that we've made a decision by majority based on good evidence and good recommendations. And I've seen some of the doctors that are against masks. You know, I've looked at the videos that were sent. So I guess, you know, we have to relitigate this every damn meeting because, you know, some people just want their way. But I'm voting against this motion.
Okay, we're gonna bring it up for a vote, Ken.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yes,
Yeah, let's just bring it up for a vote.
vote, please.
Yeah, the motion is to drop the mask requirement for all students with IEPs. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You wanna,
Oh, no,
well,
sorry.
I don't care.
You
I'm
restate
sorry.
that again,
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry,
You didn't even vote.
No, I
The
didn't.
motion on the floor is to drop the mask requirement for all students with IEPs.
Yes.
Aye, okay. Opposed? No.
Nay.
Okay, the motion fails. Then we'll move on to new business. Building and Grounds Committee that has a district safety plan.
Yeah,
Correct?
yes. We
I know.
were at the Building and Grounds Committee meeting last week at Washington. Michael Morgan was there. He presented the safety plan that needs to be approved by the board. And then they submit it to, I believe it's DPI, Mark, or who do they submit it to?
It's the Department of Justice.
Okay, yep. It was a wonderful video. It was a great presentation. We did approve it, so I'm bringing it to the board.
Okay, we don't need a motion in a second. We're just at the discussion stage. Anybody have any discussion on that?
Really liked it. I think you did a great job.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, district plan is, and then we move on to, Angela, we're back to you.
Yes.
Okay, we have our 2021-22 proposed budget that everybody has the document. We had the public hearing on it. We would need a motion and a second, and then we'll do a roll call vote if we get that motion in a second to approve that.
Okay, I move that we approve the 2021-2022 Manitowoc Public School District budget presented at the budget hearing on October 12th, 2021, in accordance with section 65.90 of the Wisconsin statutes, which includes expenditures in the general fund of $69,987,771. Total expenditures of all funds of $88,923,656, and total revenues of $88,130,995, with a tax levy of $20,315,467.
That's very good. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, and we'll have a roll call vote, but just in discussion so that we all understand is it's likely we're going to have to make some modifications. That's common because we don't have all of the reimbursement levels. We won't get those at this time. That's common within government proceedings, that there may be adjustments that need to be made to the budget because those reimbursement levels are not exactly as we have estimated. Is that correct? They're usually, I mean, my experience is that they're always close, but just so we're aware of that. Anybody else want to add anything?
We have a second.
Yeah, we got a second.
Oh, we do. Oh.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Oh, we got a roll call vote. That's Lori's job. And it's in capital letters here too.
Lisa Johnston.
Yes.
Dave Nichols.
Yes.
Meredith Sauer.
Yes.
Stacy Seldner.
Aye.
Carrie Trask.
Yes.
Kathy Willis.
Yes.
Okay, then we have one other item, that was the Skyward Financial and Human Resources Database conversion. Did anybody want to speak to that? Anna, do you want to add anything about that?
You know, I don't have to add a whole lot on to our patients in our district. We have many manual at this time, all the way from timekeeping to time off to, budget process, budget transfers, just purchasing, the list goes on. So this would just be a major investment, and due to the process of pressure for we have to bring it forward.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye. And that didn't say roll call votes. Then we move on to other business. We had our meeting of our ad hoc COVID protocols advisory committee on Monday the 4th. We went through all of the items on the protocol list, but just our discussion really centered on two areas: facial coverings and isolating and quarantine. No surprise, right? Colin, again, brought up the idea of making masks optional rather than a requirement. One of the things that I brought up is that my position in the mask is that it's a temporary item and not something that people should be concerned that we've set for the entire year. I know that looking at and I use the health department, I use our health director. I take her data seriously. I know that she's very good at that. She's worked with infectious disease. The numbers that we're seeing right now in October are almost identical to what they were a year ago. One thing we did see though, that beginning in November and into December, we saw a decline in the numbers. And I'm hopeful that happens again. And if it does, I'm certainly interested in relooking at what our protocols are, including whether or not masking is appropriate. And we did change, last year the board did agree at our December meeting to make a change to the metrics we were using because those numbers were declining. So if that's the case, and I hope it is, then we would relook at that. Also, we looked at isolating and quarantining. Superintendent Holzman explained what the timelines is for those students that have to be isolated or quarantined. The biggest discussion actually focused on the teaching that takes place for those students that we're requiring to stay home. We require them not to go into class, so we have to teach them in some other method. And we've gotten some feedback from parents who I should say they don't fully like the way we're doing that, right? I mean, it's probably the easiest way to say it. And so we asked Superintendent Holzman if there are better means of providing that teaching to those students who we require. It's part of our policy. We're going to make them stay home and they're going to have to go virtual. Then we want to make sure that they're getting the best education experience that they can. And so that's something that we asked them to look at. I know there were some changes to the protocols that you sent out to us. So that's pretty much my report. Anybody got any questions on that? We probably will meet in a couple of weeks so that we can further discuss. And again, probably those two issues are probably the main issues that we'll have. I am looking at adding 2 parents to that group. I think it would be good to have parents maybe with differing views to come in and be a part of the discussion. So we'll work with that from there. Colin.
Are we going to be also in that, at the next meeting, discussing the testing procedures?
Yeah, that's something I said I would add to that.
Yeah, good.
Anything that would relate to the protocols, I'll let you. I'm going to probably just list it as protocols, and that just covers everything. Whatever you want to bring into that is fine with me. And then if I guess we don't really have any advice for the board right now. We did give that to Superintendent Holzman, and he recognized that. So that's where we're at right now. All right. Takes care of that. And then future meeting dates, our next board meeting would be, today is what, the 24th would be the day? 26th? 26th sounds better. Okay, I think 24th is a Sunday. I got a college cross country meet that day. Okay, I want to be there. And we would meet at noon. Any committees that need to meet? Does our budget, are you going to meet again?
Quickly do an additional motion on the final budget, or did it just come under finance or unfinished business?
Well,
I can work with Mark on that, but other than
yeah,
that,
we'll let you know.
we are. Thanks, and we have the budget.
Okay, you had 2 sets of minutes tonight. That's one of the first times I've ever seen that happen. So that's okay. Do you have anything, Joyce? Okay. And building and grounds and curriculum.
We're meeting on the 21st, does that sound right? I would like to ask both Kathy and Stacy though, can we bump that up to 5 o'clock? It was an definitive end time at 6:45.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
Anything else for the good of the board here?
Okay.
I have a patient at 4:30.
Okay.
Be done. But
Or
no,
we
I
could
can,
look at another time.
No,
I need to be done by 6:45.
yeah, I'll ask if I can do that.
Okay, and if not, let me know and we'll figure out.
Okay. And then just for Lisa and Colin, if I got 2 parents coming in, we're probably going to be really looking at, a meeting time that fits everybody.
Yeah,
Rather
that's
than
whatever we need to do.
whatever we need to do. Yeah. Okay. Good. Then I would entertain a motion and second to adjourn.
Motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. And my computer.
I forgot about